I've been in touch with several organizations whose leaders have fallen into this particular pitfall. Um, and that is that the former leadership, the CEO and the executive committee, when they make that transition to self-management, suddenly stop to lead, right? They hold back. And it makes some sense, right? Like in the old model, they would be the one that would approve or make all of the important decisions, right? Everything converged to the top of the pyramid. And so in a new system, that must mean that we change that, right? That people at the top no longer make decisions, right? Pretty much everything should be bottom up as of now, right? And that, of course, is a real tragic misunderstanding. And to understand why this is a misunderstanding, I think we need to start changing the vocabulary, but because what's happening here is that we're still thinking in terms of top and bottom, right? In self-managing organizations, there is no longer a top and a bottom, right? Now everybody plays by the exact same rules, right? So say for decision making, say that you adopt the advice process or any other self-management decision-making mechanism. Everybody plays by the same rules. Everybody has to go through the same steps to make a decision happen. So before that, if somebody was at the bottom of the pyramid, they would have almost no power to make an important decision, right? Because an important decision would then, he would bring that to his manager or her manager, and that manager would say, oh, I'm not competent for that, and then brings that up and then up, and by that time that person, is not involved in the process any longer, or that thing is completely changed. And so most people at the bottom of the organization pretty quickly learn that they're kind of powerless, and they even stop making proposals because they don't know that no longer makes any sense. So all of that is changing. So it no longer makes any sense to think in terms of top and bottom. And I suggest to think about it in terms of specific and broad, right? So some people continue to have roles that are rather specific, right? So I might be a machine operator and my role is kind of specific, it's limited to that domain. I might be a social worker working with a number of families, and so my role is quite specific. I might be a salesperson, or I might be a teacher in one classroom, and so that's, I have a specific role. Some other people might have much broader roles, looking at the organization much more broadly, right? Somebody designing a whole new factory, or somebody thinking about, how is the whole market evolving, and how, will that impact all of what we do? So these are then much broader roles. And any organization needs both, right? We need, a lot of people to do very specific things for the organization. That's where the work really happens. And we also need some people who think about some of the broader aspects of the organizations. Now, when the former top leadership suddenly goes quiet, kind of disappears, it means that suddenly nobody's looking at these broader questions that the organization needs, somebody to look at. Now, it's true that over time, what you find in many self-managing organizations, that you no longer need many dedicated roles to do that. With time and maturity, a lot of the people who do more specific things also start to bump into issues and stuff that makes them think about broader roles, and then they take initiative. But that often takes some time, right? It's a maturing process where they need to learn that they can actually do that they're encouraged to do that it actually works. So in the beginning, you often still need the former leaders to look into these broad questions. And when they disappear, that's sort of a lose-lose-lose situation for everyone, right? It's a lose situation for the organization because suddenly nobody's looking at these broader questions. It's a lose situation for these leaders themselves, right? I remember having had conversation with leaders who fell into that pitfall, and when I listened to them and how they felt that they needed to hold back, that now everything needed to be bottom up, I said, like, don't you feel like you're being underutilized? You know, like there is more in you than what you can currently express. And very clearly the answer was like, yes, like, you know, they were in pain of holding back. Like it, you know, it didn't make sense. And the same is true for people in these more specific roles, right? I've seen some of these organizations where there was suddenly this confusion where people were like, okay, so these guys who used to lead us sort of in this top-down way, they now disappeared, like they've gone silent, and obviously something is expected of us, but I'm not quite clear what it is, and I'm kind of lacking directions here. I'm kind of lacking, you know, a sense of where this is all going. It's also sort of stupid because what, you know, these former leaders can do really, really powerfully is role model, you know, how this new model works, right? It's kind of difficult for people, you know, who are more specific roles to understand, you know, how does this advice process work when they don't see it role modeled, right? And so there's a really powerful functions for former leaders to say, hey, you know, I sense, you know, that something must change. Like you know, this organization, like I feel, you know, needs to go here. But, you know, I'm no longer doing it the old way, you know, top-down process. You know, I'm actually using the advice process, and here's how it works. And so really role modeling the advice process from former leaders is a very, very powerful signal of, oh, okay, so this is how we now operate. Okay, so, oh, that's how these, you know, the advice process works. Okay, so when I want to make a decision, okay, I'll simply do it, you know, in the way I just saw it done. Please, you know, if you're in a leadership position, you can still absolutely make decisions. Simply, you have to use the advice process like everyone else. Like the organization still needs your voice. Like it would be stupid if some of the most, you know, experienced people in the organization, some of the most senior people in the organizations, were suddenly not to be able to bring in their gifts. Simply, they can no longer do it in a power over way. They have to play by the same rules. So very practically, right? If you're a former leader, you know, what does this mean for you? I see at least three things. One is if people come to you in sort of the old way and say, okay, I think we should make this decision and I need your approval. It's important that you very consistently say, hey, no, you know, I'm not longer giving you an approval, but also don't disappear. You know, tell them, remind them of whatever decision-making mechanism you've adopted, say the advice process, how to do it, and you can even coach them, right? You can tell them, okay, so for that particular question, you know, who do you think are the people with expertise that you should talk to? And who are the people who will be impacted that you need to talk to? Well, go out there and talk to, you know. If I'm one of the people with expertise or impacted, you know, here's my advice. But, you know, it's not a mandate. Like, this is just my perspective integrated with other people's, and make the best decision you can. So one, you know, if people come to you for approval, don't give them approval, coach them. Two, most organizations, you know, you have all these forums, you know, all these meetings and stuff where decisions get approved, right? So it's really baked into the system. So you need to dismantle these, you know, approval-making meetings to allow people to make decisions based on whatever the advice process. And then the third thing is, just like everyone else, when you sense a tension, when you sense a problem or an opportunity, and you feel that something needs to change, well, the organizations need you. Like, that's really valuable. So by any means, go out there and make that happen, right? And use the advice process or whatever mechanism you've chosen in the process, and really role model it, you know, how you use it, so that the organization sees you do it and gets used to this new mechanism.